So, introduction. We are the Metropolitan elites.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We are there.
I'm David Swansbuckle.
And I am Warren Spector.
Guardian. So everyone knows that we're
bastards.
We're Metropolitan elites.
Yeah,
we read the Guardian.
Smug elite in the middle of London. There we are. Yeah. Look, that's what we read. So yeah, the Illuminati rang us up last night and told us to say the following.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to discuss various political things and I suppose a bit of current affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we have a very metropolitan slant on it.
Yeah, because we're elitist, smug.
Yeah. I mean, look at this article, it's so interesting. Yeah, it's about torture and stuff like that, and we don't like that.
We don't like torture.
Because we're liberal. So yeah, this is our first episode, so welcome. Please subscribe if you haven't, because there's going to be lots of stuff coming your way, which is going to be quite good. So I think we should start with Warren. What was your moment of the week?
My moment of the week, I suppose, well, there was a couple. The stuff about the Human Rights Act, isn't there?
Yeah.
What's happening with that?
So basically, the Tory government hasn't managed to get to the Queen's speech with unity on this issue.
Did you see the Queen looking at Cameron and sort of sighing when she read it out? Did you see that? Was that anything? Was it a thing? Maybe. Don't know.
So I sort of say psychoactive substances, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, the Tories haven't managed to get to the Queen's speech with any sort of unity on this. I'm sure it's a manifesto pledge to dump.
Because we don't like human rights. That's Europe, isn't it? Even though it's nothing to do with the EU.
The Tories and the right sort of categorise this as red tape, the Human Rights Act. Whereas realistically, it was sort of enshrined into law, the European Court of Human Rights.
Yeah.
Which sort of, it came about as a sort of recognition that actually things can get out of hand. You know, sort of after World War II, people thought, things can get quite wrong. So we're going to,
Yeah. So does it mean they want to go back to something?
They think. Well, it's framed in the idea of exporting terrorists and things like that.
Yeah, which you can understand. Obviously, it's fair enough, really, isn't it? But
it's a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I'm afraid, on this.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you have any big system or anything, any sort of underpinning like that, there's always going to be some negative aspect of it. And the Tories don't like that, so they're going to get rid of it. It's got to be 100% perfect or not at all. But it turns out they can't do it because there's a few reasonable Tories in the Tory party.
David Davis.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Well, it's a populist thing, isn't it? It's people who think it's the EU doing it.
Yeah.
Which of course it isn't.
So that was quite interesting, actually. I mean, that was quite early on in the week. Since then, we've had the actual question that's going to be on the referendum posed to us.
Oh yeah.
Europe.
Do you want to stay in the EU? Well, that was worth waiting for.
Should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union? It's fairly straightforward. Remember the weeks of debate we had over the Scottish referendum?
Yeah.
We haven't had any of that this time. Very strange. We've also had FIFA. The FIFA thing has blown up big styly.
Right, I'll put this over to you. Over to you.
Yeah. Apparently, there is corruption in FIFA. Newsflash.
Even I knew that.
Yeah. David Cameron, who couldn't quite remember who he supported when push came to shove, has an opinion on this that Sepp Blatter must go. And it seems a lot of European football people are quite keen for this to happen. I think we were quite disappointed that we didn't win the World Cup bid, even though we unleashed HRH, Prince William, onto the into the bid.
So therefore, obviously, we should have had it.
The Americans are quite disappointed they didn't get Qatar, and all of a sudden the Americans are charging FIFA officials. But the problem is, there's a lot of sort of third world footballing nations that quite like Sepp Blatter because he puts a lot of money their way to develop grassroots football.
So surely this is only happening now because it's not going our way, isn't
Basically,
it?
yeah. Basically, we've had it.
Because it's always been like that, hasn't it?
We run football, so therefore...
We own it, it's ours.
Sepp Blatter should just bugger off and let us have all the World Cups in USA and England.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So that's going on at the moment.
Well, I mean, other things, something I read here which is quite interesting, this is from a couple of days ago, that in 2012 to 13, private landlords were given 14 billion in tax breaks.
Yeah.
Now, hang on, isn't there a 13 billion hole that we have to fill by no more hospitals and schools?
Wow. There's £12 billion worth of cuts, which Ian Duncan Smith says, get your hands off my budget, George Osborne, because obviously it was a fake election promise that they thought they would have to water down because of the Liberal Democrats. So we'll get into a negotiation with the Liberal Democrats and then we'll water it down a bit. And then it'd be their fault that we can't balance the budget in this Parliament like we did in the last Parliament. Well, they didn't want to balance the budget, they wanted to cut the deficit to zero in one Parliament, only they didn't. Therefore, they are economically strong.
Goalposts moved.
Yeah.
See, I do know about football.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. 14 billion there. Well, the 12 billion. We're not going to penalise the poor because they've already. You know, if you stop paying out of work benefits, you will still not make 12 billion.
Nowhere near that. No.
So you are going to have to start hitting normal, average working people who will suddenly realise that actually voting Tory wasn't in their interest.
The other answer will be, of course, to hit pensioners, but fortunately they're not going to do that.
You can't touch the grey vote.
I agree. You shouldn't do that. But obviously they're not going to do that because they're the only people who vote.
Yeah.
You idiots.
Stop voting. See, if young people got out and voted, well, they're apparently not going to be allowed to in the referendum.
No, they're not allowed, obviously.
An interesting thing. I think one of my points of the week was the news that Amazon are actually going to start paying tax on UK sales in the UK.
Oh, really? How did that come about?
It's not clear. You presume there's been some finagling behind the lines. It's not just in the UK, it's in other countries as well. So, you know, before the Chancellor comes out and says, look what I've done, I've made Amazon pay some tax. They have agreed to do this in other countries. I think it's a European thing. It's sort of, obviously Amazon rely quite a lot on the European common market. They think it's a good thing. And I don't think they want Britain pulling out of the EU. And it's a fairly strong argument that actually it's the EU that have let Amazon offset their profits or ship their profits off to Belgium or Luxembourg, wherever it is, and pay less tax. So that's a fairly strong argument. You could make a fairly coherent argument based on that. If the tax receipts are down because people are exploiting profits, then you could make a fairly solid argument on that. So I think Amazon are having a change of policy. There's also most of these companies always come back. We're just doing what's legislated for. If you've got any problem, blame the MPs. But I think there's an issue with trust with business at the moment. People have an expectation of what companies should pay in terms of tax, and they're not paying anywhere near enough of it. And I think they're trying to readdress that balance.
Yeah. Well, the argument is that if they all paid, everyone paid what they're supposed to, then there wouldn't be a deficit.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? No deficit.
There's other stuff happening in the BBC, which is obviously the BBC now are having to shift to the right to keep the Tories happy to try and stay afloat.
Yeah, I don't.
They've cancelled Buzzcocks, and it seems to have been replaced with a benefits Hunger Games. So that's nice. Next, they'll probably be cancelling BBC 4 and replacing it with a new right-wing channel, which will be in the daytime. It'll be a compilation of Andrew Neil shouting over Owen Jones.
Yeah.
And at night it'll be a sort of highlight of Jeremy Clarkson's best bits, which will probably be quite good.
Sponsored by the Taxpayers Alliance, no doubt. So the BBC's on its way out, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks that way, yeah.
Let's face it, the right wing dominate news coverage over the last 5 years, and they're going to pay the price.
People are saying, well, I only watch American TV. But I mean, American TV is brilliant now, so the argument's changed to what it used to be when American TV wasn't. But it's still only drama. The good American TV is all drama. There's no good American documentaries or QI. There's no American QI, is there? You know.
We like the beep. We're Metropolitan and elites.
Yeah, because we like to take money off ordinary, hard-working people.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about this quite a lot over the next few years. Should we have a talk about the Labour leadership bid?
We could. It's pretty depressing and dull, isn't it? I mean, there was Chuckramoon, and he says, "Oh no, dear."
Chucker was the most likely candidate to do anything, although he is a pretty. I would say, although he was brought in by Ed Miliband, he was a pretty Blairite style figure.
Yeah,
very pro-business.
Yeah,
but seemed pragmatic.
You notice Tony Blair has resigned as his Middle East peace envoy irony title. That's a coincidence.
That is strange.
You don't think?
No. Actually, when you look at the list of candidates that are putting their names forward, okay, so Andy Burnham is currently Bucky's favourite. In fact, the reason for this is the only guy that's had anything to say over the last 5 years.
Yeah, they've just sat there.
Of any substance.
Have they all just assumed they were going to win?
I think the shadow cabinet have got a lot to answer for on the failed general election, just over the period of the parliament.
Did they want to win?
Their heart definitely wasn't in it.
Because I certainly felt that in 2010 and Ed Miliband became leader, I got this impression that they're not planning on winning the next one either. That was the impression I got then, and then it all stuff happened. And people thought that the Labour were going to win, but it turns out the private polls from internal to the Labour Party were telling them that they were going to lose. So, question mark, were the polls actually a spin? Were we not told the real polls?
Yeah, I mean, we had...
Tinfoil hat.
Well, I mean, we've had a few suggestions that it did affect Labour's approach to the campaign. For that to work, you'd have to suggest that the Conservatives were secretly in the know, and there was 2 sets of polls, one for the real people and one for everybody else. I'm not too sure about that. I just think the polls are an incredibly flaky way of apart from the exit polls. Yeah, and then we've got, behind Andy Burnham, Liz Kendall. Any idea what she's done over the last 5 years?
Hadn't heard of her till now.
Yeah, apparently we need to be more pro-business. Yvette Cooper, a real sort of also-ran figure. I don't know, her stock went up over the last Parliament, and for the sake of me, I couldn't understand why. She just started saying things a little bit more forcibly.
Nowhere near enough.
No, I haven't heard her say anything of any substance. She's actually leading the race with the nominations at the moment.
But this is why people like Nigel Farage are popular, isn't it? Yeah. It doesn't matter that it's obviously a trick and an act and everything like that. He's just exciting, and he's saying stuff, and it's saying this, we should do this, rather than just this banal, bland, playing it safe.
Yeah.
She's so meh.
And the outsider is Mary Creer, or whatever you want to call her. She seems quite reasonable. Or whether that's enough to go for a lead. When you look at some of the contenders for deputy leader, they've got a much bigger profile than she has, which is why she's at about 50 to 1, I suppose. She's an outsider.
She'd probably be the best choice, which probably means that they won't choose her.
My contention is, which I've sort of put on the website, is that Labour shouldn't elect a leader. They should leave it till at least after the European referendum, and maybe close to the general election, because none of these candidates have really proved themselves over in a serious cabinet position.
Yeah, wait and see what happens.
They should duke it out. They should try and win the battle over a long period. The Tory machine was really effective at demonising Ed Miliband in the last Parliament. They had 5 years to set the narrative in place that he was useless, he was a goofball.
He was a communist, basically, wasn't he?
He was somehow schizophrenically the most dangerous man in Britain and completely useless.
And the SNP is his fault, even though now we've got David Cameron on the streets of Downing Street shaking hands with Nicola
David Cameron goes on the out and remarks, says the idea of an SNP swing in the Commons is really frightening, and what have we got? Because they spent a couple of £1 million sticking Alex Salmond's face all over the country. A large contingent of SNP MPs in Parliament.
And now David Cameron's going to work with them.
Complete hypocrisy. So yeah, I think they should leave. They should let. If there's no leader in place, there's no one that the Linton Crosby can focus the right wing dailies ire on.
Is he still around? Are they getting rid of him?
He's God at the moment, hasn't he? He's delivered a majority.
True. Yeah. Which nobody believed could happen.
Yeah, they're really effective at playing negative politics and picking on someone. So if there's no one there, there's no one for them to pick on. They could put a transient leader in place. Not Harry Harman, because he's pretty weak, but Ed Miliband should have stayed on, basically.
That would have done the least damage.
They could say anything they like to. His time has gone. It's not really going to affect anything. He's had 5 years of PMQs. Sometimes it was effective, other times no. But while the party sorts itself out, they find another leader who's worthy of taking up the challenge. Can come in somewhere towards the end of the Parliament. He's quite clean, got no baggage. It doesn't give the Tories long enough to find the narrative which is going to really run them down, and they can sort of go in while theoretically the Conservatives are going to go in pretty dirty. They're going to be infighting over the human rights thing, the European election, referendum, and whatever else they choose to implode about. I think that could conceivably be the only way that Labour could win in the next election. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll be back next time. Our lizard overlords, our left-wing lizard overlords have rung us up.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week. See you next week.